Night Shift Whispers.
At noon, the lunchtime sirens wailed throughout the school building. I tidied up my books briefly as my friends rapidly vanished from their desks and tables around me. Perhaps they were too hungry to endure the back-of-the-line situation at the cafeteria's food court. The sky was a gloomy shade of gray. Although it was the early spring season, the weather appeared insistent on clinging to its dour disposition. The thick clusters of clouds seemed to mock me as I longingly yearned for the brilliant blue sky that I so adored. I stepped out of the classroom, tightening my jacket. The corridors fell silent in an instant. How powerful was the cafeteria's magnetic pull on famished students? They seemed to dash there with the speed of sprinters. I peered out over the balcony railing. The courtyard below was equally desolate. Not a soul in sight. Well, perhaps the weather was simply too frigid for extended outdoor loitering. But the question remained, why had the typically bustling sounds disappeared so abruptly? It was eerily quiet, and my echoing footsteps along the corridor were the only sounds, punctuating the silence with an anxious rhythm. Suddenly, another sound shattered the silence. It was a desperate cry for help, a woman's voice, high-pitched, pleading, and filled with fear. It left me momentarily stunned, my mind awhirl with myriad worrisome thoughts and questions. Once more, I leaned over the balcony to investigate. A female student was running frantically toward the far end of the schoolyard, heading for a narrow alley that led to a storage shed for discarded items. Even from a distance, her posture suggested that she was fleeing from something menacing. Curiosity spurred me to quickly descend the stairs, and within 5 minutes, I found myself on the path to the back corner where the neglected storage shed was located. The illumination in this area was dim, the narrow space enclosed by tall walls from all sides. A door that appeared to hold many secrets almost beckoned towards me, inviting me to draw closer. Where had the girl disappeared to? This storage shed door was the end of the line, with no way to escape except by entering it. If she were trapped inside, she had no means of escape. I hesitated as I approached the door. For some reason, my curiosity often overcame my fear, and I occasionally set aside my better judgment. Slowly, I reached for the door handle and turned it. To my surprise, it opened easily. Reluctantly, I peered inside. Unused desks and chairs were piled haphazardly to one side, covered in thick layers of dust and cobwebs. On the other side, various sports equipment, old model computers, and worn-out statues were stacked as if holding their own tales of woe in the silence. "Hello," I called out. As I stepped inside, I scanned the room with my gaze, searching for any sign of the girl. I checked the corners and every nook and cranny, but she was nowhere to be found. A faint glimmer of dim light seeped through the floor crevice in the corner of the room. Slowly, I approached it, realizing that the crevice was, in fact, a slightly ajar sliding door leading to another room beneath the floor. So, this old warehouse had an underground chamber? I was truly taken aback. Once again, curiosity compelled me before seeking approval from reason. This time, I even hastened to slide open the basement door entirely. The nauseating and stifling stench immediately assailed my nostrils. I coughed slightly in response to the odor, yet my other side remained utterly indifferent to this trivial matter. My feet began to descend the stairs one by one, eventually leading me to an unfamiliar room that made me feel like I had entered a different world. The room was bathed in a dim, yellowish glow from a solitary light bulb. Tables, chairs, shelves, and wooden cabinets, weathered and deteriorating from dampness, were scattered throughout the space. "Hello," once again, I attempted to address anyone who might be hiding there. Still, there was no response. Carefully, I ventured further, inspecting the concealed corners behind the stacks of cabinets and shelves, whose colors had long lost their vibrancy. The girl must be hiding in one of those corners. It couldn't be any other way, unless there was a hidden door or another secret chamber I was unaware of. "Do not come any closer." Suddenly, a panicked voice rang out not far from me. I turned towards the source of the voice, and there she was, a girl with shoulder-length hair cowering in the gap between the wall and a cupboard. "It's okay, calm down. I'm not the one chasing you," I said, doing my best to reassure her. The girl stared at me intensely, her eyes filled with resentment. "What kind of joke is this?" she said in an anger she couldn't hide. "What do you mean?" "This is no joke. I'm just trying to help you from whatever was chasing you earlier," I replied in a tone I tried to keep calm. "Don't keep making jokes." She snapped at me. Calm down. It seems you've misunderstood," I said again. "I wasn't the one chasing you, really. I was upstairs when I saw you running in fear, so I came here to follow." "Go away!" she screamed hysterically. "Don't bother me anymore. Leave me alone, or I will really finish you." "How am I bothering you? We don't even know each other," I replied, baffled. "Why do you keep asking? You, who have been bullying me all along, who stole my boyfriend, who cheated on my tests, but everyone sees you as innocent and blameless. You twist the facts. I'm the victim, but you make me out to be the villain," she shouted angrily. "Me? Doing all that? I think you've got the wrong person," I replied. "I told you, go away, or I'll finish you. I should have pushed you off the cliff that day before you could push me. You are a monster. You've long wanted to kill me, but you act like the victim," she yelled again. "Hey, I told you it's not me." For some reason, instead of leaving as she demanded, I was trying to explain vehemently. "Please." Suddenly, the girl turned to the other side. "It's her, Vivian, whom I told you about. That wicked girl. See? She will kill me twice. Save me." She pushed me off the cliff, but she told everyone she was only defending herself. She's a demon. Please help me. Hey, who else was she talking to other than me? Intrigued, I turned to where she was looking. There stood another girl, seemingly present all along. But I was shocked when I saw her figure. She looked just like me, as if I were looking in a mirror. I blinked repeatedly. What was happening? I couldn't make sense of any of this. Your name is Jessica, right? I know you're a good person. You came here to help me, didn't you? Please finish her. Finish Vivian, or she will kill me again. The girl pleaded with the figure resembling me. Me? Vivian? How could I be mistaken for Vivian? I was still bewildered, but I tried to explain that I was Jessica. Desperately, I tried to clarify that I was the real Jessica, but the girl refused to believe me. She repeatedly implored the figure resembling me to finish me off. The girl who resembled me turned to look at me, smiling with satisfaction. She picked up a baseball bat from a nearby table and, ready to strike, approached me with a malicious grin, eager to kill. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled backward, further and further, until I was pressed against the wall. In a state of uncertainty, the corner of my eye caught something to my right. I turned to look, and there was an old mirror with cracks in it. But the next moment, I gasped in a stifled scream. The figure reflected in the mirror was not me, but someone else. The figure resembling me continued to advance, raising her hand and swinging the bat. Wait! I cried out, gasping, attempting to buy some time. Who are you really? I asked, both curious and trying to find an opening to avoid the bat. The figure didn't answer, but grinned with satisfaction. Could it be, was that Vivian? So, had Vivian and I switched bodies? This was truly crazy. The girl began swinging her bat recklessly, and I struggled to evade her blows. The bat struck my shoulder and then my leg a couple of times. With great difficulty, I crawled beneath a nearby table. As she attempted to reach me, I summoned all my strength to flip the table towards her. As she was momentarily trapped by the table I pushed, I seized the opportunity to make a run for it. I kept running as fast as I could toward the staircase. Step by step, I ascended, my chest constricting and my breath on the verge of running out. With great effort, I neared the top. However, on the last step, the girl managed to grab my leg and pull me down. My balance was thrown off, and I stumbled, finally collapsing on the floor. My vision darkened. Then I jolted. I found myself still in the classroom, seated with my head resting on the table and cushioned by my arms. Had I been asleep earlier? My breathing was irregular, my heart raced, and cold sweat soaked my forehead. What kind of dream was that? How could I dream such a peculiar scenario in broad daylight? Wait a minute. Vivian? The name sounded vaguely familiar in the recesses of my memory. I pondered for a moment. Oh my goodness, I remembered. Vivian was a student from a higher grade. Everyone had heard of her. Her story had become an open secret among the students over the years, despite the school's efforts to keep it under wraps. So, in the past, there were two friends, Natasha and Vivian, who had a quarrel on the edge of a cliff during a school hiking event. Natasha was accidentally pushed into the gorge and didn't survive. No one specifically blamed Vivian for the incident as it was deemed unintentional. However, exactly 1 week later, Vivian jumped from the school rooftop and lay lifeless in the courtyard. I sighed. The dream felt so vivid. My body still felt tired, as if I had genuinely been running away from Vivian's ruthless attack. So, the other girl I saw, was she Natasha? It was unfortunate to dream about people who had passed away. Fortunately, it was just a dream. After managing to calm myself, I rose from my seat. The classroom was now empty, and my classmates were likely enjoying their lunch in the cafeteria. I realized I was quite hungry. My stomach had even made its presence known. As I walked out of the classroom, I noticed the sky was ominously gray, and the cold air seemed to chill my bones. I shivered and tightened my jacket. Suddenly, I realized that not a single sound could be heard except for the echoing of my own footsteps. I peered out onto the courtyard, just as I had done in my dream. It was deserted, with not a living soul in sight. This was strange. What on earth was happening? I continued walking while trying to dismiss the odd thoughts from my mind. Out of nowhere, a cry for help pierced the silence. I froze in my tracks. It was the same cry I had heard in my dream. With an unsteady heartbeat, I cautiously glanced at the courtyard again. Down there, a girl was running frantically towards the corner of the schoolyard, heading for the old storage shed. I stood there, paralyzed. It was the same girl as before. Natasha. On a whim, I hurried to the restroom just to look in the mirror. However, as soon as I arrived, I let out a scream. The reflection in the mirror wasn't my usual self, but the figure of Vivian, just as I had seen in the cracked mirror in my dream.